1,000 Canadian soldiers are battling their way through the Norwegian Arctic right now. Their mission to fight off Russian invaders. It's a war game, of course, but not just any war game. They're part of a huge military exercise, the biggest test yet of NATO's ability to defend Norway in a war. Tonight, a special report on how Canadian troops are doing from Brian Stewart.
It is the largest NATO exercise ever held in the Arctic. So large that its 150 ships and 40,000 troops dwarf the entire British Falklands campaign of 2 years ago. The exercise accepts the premise that in a conventional war, Norway would be key part of an air and sea defense line blocking the Soviets' huge submarine fleet from the Atlantic, and would therefore have to be captured if the Soviets were to win. To test Norway's defenses, thousands of U.S., British, and Dutch Marines have poured ashore into northern fjords, simulating a massive Soviet assault. Thrown in to stop them, alongside Norwegian units, is NATO's own rapid deployment force, here spearheaded by 1,000 Canadians. In a real war, these troops would be only part of Canada's presence here. 4,000 others would join them under a separate 6-year-old defense pact. It's all been watched with interest by the Canadian government and military, both aware of domestic criticism that the Norway commitment is unrealistic at best, doomed at worst. But in this exercise, at least, it was the invaders, not the defenders, who were soon in trouble. Their heavy armor was blocked along rough terrain, their advance units harried by Canadian defenders, or captured.
Does this mean we're going steady?
No, it doesn't.
Hey, move up, pick up that rifle.
Scores of umpires using military equations for success or failure center their attention on one hill blocking the advance, held by the 1st Battalion, Royal Canadian Regiment, and support units. In this exercise world, of course, only blank ammunition was used as Marines in black hats hurled themselves against Canadians in white.
Stop all the way through!
Time after time, they stormed Canadian positions, only to be told by umpires that they'd been slaughtered.
And then move back to your position.
Wait a minute.
That's it.
This is the 3rd time I hit this hill today. What the hell's going on? How much?
Y'all are doing a hell of a job. We love coming.
Here, the retreating invaders and victorious defenders could afford to trade jokes. Both knew that in a real war, their casualties would not march away to prepare another attack. But in the forest headquarters of NATO's Rapid Deployment Force, called Allied Command Europe Mobile Force, there is satisfaction. The brigade, now commanded by Canadian General Andrew CHRISTIE, would move quickly here in a crisis. He feels the terrain offers an advantage.
When you arrive here and you look at the mountains, the very steep valleys, the fjords that cut back into the mountains themselves, it's a ground that is ideally suited for a light infantry force such as ourselves. I think we can impose the maximum delay on anyone. Our biggest concern will be that we keep getting the supplies to allow us to continue to fight.
Worries about supply affect all commanders here, especially Canadian, arguably the most ill-equipped for Norway. After long commitment here and much debate, Canadian troops still don't have sufficient over-snow vehicles or enough modern rifles or enough manpower in their overworked units. Despite the bickering and political doubts, Canada's commitment to Norway continues as a massive task for Canada's overstretched ground forces. And indeed, that commitment is likely to continue as long as both countries remain in NATO. For once into such a defensive pledge, there is simply no easy way out. So Canadian troops know that barring the real thing, they'll be coming to these Arctic hills for years to come. Once they thought the commitment temporary. Now they know it's frozen too, like the very winter landscape over which they maneuver. Brian Stewart, CBC News in northern Norway.